Kelsey Ann Smith.
Ever since she was a kid, she always loved the color blue. My mom nicknamed her Blueberry, and she found this blue dress, and it's beautiful on her. She found it at a thrift store because that's how she was. She loved a bargain like that.
As Kelsey grew up, she was very inquisitive. She did theater and dance and choir and band. I think band was probably her favorite activity.
Kelsey had to try everything that there was. She was always out there exploring, just like she had been when she was a little kid. I don't remember exactly what meal I was making, but when Kelsey didn't get back on time and we couldn't get a hold of her on the phone, it was an immediate sign that something was wrong.
I got called to advise that patrol needed some assistance with a possible missing persons case.
Her family had been searching for her for a few hours and had located her vehicle abandoned.
I remembered my dad telling me as soon as we saw the car, he said, "Don't touch anything."
This was a crime of opportunity, and we don't know if she had left the house 10 minutes later, if it would have happened.
I saw that footage, and all I see is just a quick dash of something run across the screen. We all knew that someone had taken her.
We see this, and we froze. The room got deathly quiet.
I was fearful of exactly what happened. I just didn't realize how it was going to completely change our entire family's lives.
Don't you even.
I have no idea what you're talking about. You're in trouble, silly string. We got silly string, Dad. You better sleep with your eyes open.
It's Christmas. She looks very happy about Christmas.
She does.
I wonder what she got that year.
When we went to the Alamo, there's these steps, and Mom decided she wanted to get a picture of all of us in order. So I'm sitting at the top, and then it goes Lindsay, Kelsey, Cody, and Zach. Kelsey's just got the cheesiest, biggest smile out of all of us in that picture. Just super happy. It's one of my favorite photos of all of us. Little did we know we would only have a few more years left.
When I met Greg, I had already had my oldest daughter, Stevie, from my previous marriage. And then we had our daughter, Lindsay, just shortly after we got married. And now we have 5 kids.
Kelsey was the only one that we planned. All the others were, miracles of God. They just came along.
We ended up in Overland Park because my husband is from here. After he got out of the Navy, Greg became a Kansas City, Missouri police officer. I think Kelsey was about 9.
Coming back home for me was a big deal. Overland Park, growing up, I always had fun. I always thought it was a nice place to live.
I never felt unsafe in Overland Park. It feels like a place where you can just leave your doors unlocked and you're going to be okay.
Kelsey had a lot of friends. All of her friends would always come to our house for everything.
They'd go down in the basement and play games or sit around and watch television. Just seemed like our house was the house to come to for some reason. I don't know why.
I do remember Kelsey having a couple boyfriends, but John was, God, they were just so in love. It was one of those where it was annoying and it was cute. He meant so much to her and vice versa. He loved to make her smile. Her nose would scrunch up like crazy because of how he would crack her up.
John was definitely different. I mean, watching him, I think probably that eventually they'd ended up being married. June 2nd is a Saturday. Missy had gone to Iowa to a wedding for a friend of hers. So I took the kids to Old Shawnee Days at a parade earlier in the day. It's kind of like a carnival type atmosphere. So we did that, rode the rides, did all the fun stuff, and I came home to make dinner.
I knew that they said that she had gone to Target to get a gift for John.
Kelsey came back within just a few minutes because she forgot a CD that she wanted to take with her in the car. So she came in and got that, and she said, love you, Dad, see you later.
Kelsey had called me because she was trying to find an item in Target, this box for John, to put cards and letters and stuff that she had gotten him. And then as we were getting ready to hang up, I told her, bye, baby, see you when I get home. And that was the last time I got to talk to her.
I was hanging out with my friend at my apartment. We were watching the movie about a serial killer going around killing young girls. And we were all like, wow, that was an intense movie. And the credits pop up. And that's when I got a phone call from my sister, Lindsay, saying, have you heard from Kels?
Hi, guys. It's Kelsey. Obviously, I can't come to the phone right now. Leave me a message. Bye.
And she told me that they haven't heard from Kels. And we all know the rules. You leave a spot, you call and let mom and dad know.
That whole trip home, I just keep calling and texting and communicating with Greg and Lindsay and everyone. And there was no sign of Kelsey anywhere. So as soon as Lindsay told me Kelsey wasn't answering her phone, I told her to tell her dad to call the police.
I worked for campus police, so I was still a law enforcement officer, but it was on a college campus rather than a city. So I started calling other police departments around here, just trying to see if maybe she'd been in an accident, see if she'd had a traffic stop, something, and we weren't getting any kind of information. It was pretty obvious pretty quick that something had gone wrong.
I looked at my best friend in a panic. I said, we got to go find Kels. So my best friend drove me, and we knew she had been at Target. And there's a road that goes around the mall. And Target and the mall are across the street from Macy's parking lot. And I remember my grandparents coming in from one angle and my friend driving from the other. And then we just see her car and pull in at the same time.
I remember Missy getting here when my parents found the car. So we headed out to the mall and we called the police at the same time and said, hey, her car's been located, meet us out there. There was something hanging out of the trunk of Kelsey's car. It was like a piece of paper or a bag or something, which told me that somebody else had been in the trunk. They opened the car and she wasn't there. She wasn't in the trunk. It was just very strange. I mean, her car's there, her purse is there. The stuff she bought for John is there in the car, but she's not there and her phone's not there. Those things are missing.
We started looking around all of the bushes and in all of the dumpsters because there was no sign of Kelsey anywhere.
I had this gut feeling that her not being in the trunk, I already knew what the results were going to be from it. I fell to my knees and I told my best friend, this isn't going to end the way we want it to.
June 2nd, 2007 was a typical early summer day. Great weather, no rain, just nice and sunny. I was actually sleeping when I got the phone call.
The information that I got was a family reported their 18-year-old daughter missing. Kelsey's car had been taken into evidence and was being processed by our evidence techs.
I called the sergeant on scene and asked him to escort everybody to the headquarters so I could do the interviews in private.
I am a police officer, so I knew what questions were coming and I knew what to expect. And I also knew we didn't do it. So it was just a matter of saying, let's do this, let's get it over with so they can go look for the right person.
So while the family was being interviewed, Kelsey's car was being processed by our evidence technicians, gathering fingerprints and DNA and anything inside the vehicle. We found the Target bag that was in there. It still had the photo album in it. We found the roll of wrapping paper in the car that she had purchased in the Target. So there was a lot of evidence to go through in the vehicle.
I interviewed the parents and the boyfriend separately. At that point, we had no idea what our interview would garner with John.
Kelsey's mother and father were immediately disregarded as a possibility. So that led police to look to the next person closest to Kelsey, which would be her boyfriend. Being teenagers where emotions and impulses tend to run high, it would potentially explain why Kelsey went missing, even if she just decided to run away with her boyfriend.
A tactic police use when they're interviewing a potential suspect is to ask the same questions in various different ways. John appeared genuinely upset and confused by the situation. His story remained consistent, which is indicative of someone who's telling the truth. And we knew fairly early on that John probably was not involved.
After the interview, John says you can ping a phone, you can locate a cell phone. And since Kelsey's cell phone wasn't there and Kelsey wasn't there, the assumption was that the phone was with her.
I started contacting our cell phone provider, and we just could not get them to understand. I even said to one person, my child is missing. I need you to help me find her.
Technically, the phone was in Missy's name, but because Kelsey was 18 and in possession of the phone, the cell phone provider wouldn't release that information, and they don't have a legal obligation to do that.
The next morning on Sunday, when Kelsey still had not been found, it was very concerning to us. We still didn't know if she was missing or just didn't want to be found.
Her siblings and friends immediately started making a poster about a missing person. And I remember giving them like my last $30 to go get copies made so that they could start distributing it. And Stevie and Lindsay were doing what they could with meeting with the press or talking to reporters.
Kelsey, if you're out there watching us, we're coming. We're not going to stop until you're home. Nothing is going to stop us from bringing her back with us.
Kelsey's father was a police officer, meaning that it was even worse that her car was found, but Kelsey was not. Unfortunately, I think he probably knew that given the circumstances, this looked very, very bad for his daughter.
I kind of started operating in what my family calls cop mode. I just looked at it from an evidentiary point of view, more as a police officer than as Kelsey's dad, because the longer this went on, the more scared and nervous Kelsey's dad got, but the cop could kind of keep it together.
Here, let's turn it sideways. That way when we're watching the video.
I do still have that outfit. It's a sailor one. It's pink sailor.
My name is No-No.
That's exactly. We still have that shirt. Surprise. We actually got her a shirt that said, "My name is No-No," because she was very curious, got into everything. Wrote on the walls, the lipstick. Remember those blinds you got me? And she wrote on them with lipstick.
Yep.
Oh man, Kelsey loved to push mom's buttons. She knew what mom's pet peeves were, and burping was one of them. So yeah, she would chug a soda and then she would purposely just do the biggest belch. And then the same smile she's got on her face in this picture is how she would be after she burped. Just like, haha, what are you gonna do about it? You love me.
We gathered a lot of information from a lot of people, but nothing added up to a reason for Kelsey's disappearance. Kelsey was not a runaway risk. She had never done anything like that before.
Kelsey had parents advised she was last seen shopping at Target. So the next morning on Sunday, we went to the store at 10 a.m. when they opened to give us the footage we needed.
When we viewed the video, it was on a very small screen and the quality was poor. Looking at the video, we didn't see anyone approach her. We didn't see her speak to anyone inside the store. And we set that video aside, and in the essence of timing and speed to try and find her, it was now time to ask the public for their help.
12 days ago, video captured Kelsey Smith as she walked the stage to graduate high school. Saturday night, surveillance cameras show the 18-year-old walking out of a local Target store and into apparent trouble. Her car was found hours later by the teen's grandparents at a mall across the street. Hundreds of volunteers will set out again today, passing out flyers looking for Kelsey.
After the first 48 hours, my boss initiated a Metro Squad, which reaches out to all the metropolitan area agencies.
We moved to the Overland Park Command Center, which was larger. And what we had at the command center was walls that acted as projection screens. We projected the video on the wall.
We watched 47 different angles of video. And each one of those angles that we caught an image of Kelsey in, several seconds later, you would see this gentleman in the white shirt and the brown shorts walking nearby.
This is Kelsey walking into the Target wearing her pink tank top and black shorts. Kelsey's walking through the store. She's selecting her items and making her way to the cash register. Shortly after Kelsey walks by the jewelry counter, you can see someone following close behind her. And he's looking around, making sure that he sees what Kelsey's doing and where she's going.
And the whole time, as we're sitting there watching that, it made us feel like we're watching a lion hunt his prey. And it was clear to me that this wasn't his first time. She's oblivious. She wrote a check for a purchase. She exits here. By this time, he is pretty much back to his truck, if not close to it. You'll see Kelsey. She's here at her car, places her items in the passenger side, walks around the back side. You'll see quick flash. That's what started it for us, was that quick flash.
At that moment, we knew that Kelsey had been taken against her will.
Once we started walking backwards through the video, we were able to see his blue 1979 pickup truck driving around the backside of the store. And the last frame of that is basically the picture of the pickup truck that we sent the media.
Police in Kansas are still trying to find 18-year-old Kelsey Smith, who was abducted over the weekend. On Tuesday, police released surveillance tape that from a distance shows her being forced into her car outside a Target store in Overland Park, and then a pickup truck that may have been driven by a man involved in her disappearance.
The police had brought Greg and I to their command center. When we saw the footage of Kelsey being taken, we just knew that it wasn't good and prayed that we would at least get to bring her home.
When I saw that footage, you can see clearly that he was stalking her, that he was preying on her. It's an image that I will never get out of my head. Just her walking in so happy, so carefree, having no idea what's about to happen to her.
We knew we were looking for a stranger at this point. We had a vague description of a white male, dark hair, a white t-shirt, and dark colored shorts, which is probably a description of 30% of the people out there shopping that day.
We were able to get a very good facial shot of him. Once that image went out into the media, the TIPS hotline started getting overwhelmed with calls.
Overall, we had 1,700 leads, and we followed up on 1,100 of them.
This was somebody that looked like they were probably from the area because he had either Kansas or Missouri plates to suggest that this was somebody who was familiar with this location.
The footage was provided to America's Most Wanted, and information that we gave to the local media gave us 3 leads, 2 from a neighbor and 1 from a friend of his. We hadn't received any information yet from the cell phone company, but the FBI and the DEA was able to give us the last known location for Kelsey's cell phone. So there was a couple of communications at Oak Park Mall, a couple communications along 435 highway here. And as they made their way at the park near Longview Lake, the phone was pinging and giving us locations.
Her last known location was less than 2 hours after she left the Target. So I was not optimistic that we were going to find her alive.
The information we got, it was like at 8 o'clock, too late to start a search because daylight was going away. So at 7 a.m. the next morning, we started the search at the cell site tower. When the officers arrived at the cell site tower, they had information that Kelsey's last known location was 1,350 feet east by northeast of the cell phone tower. So the officers walked directly almost to her body down here in the ravine.
It was obvious that it was her. We found her same pink tank top and shorts that she was seen in the Target video were laying not far from the body.
It was clear that she had been lured here or brought here against her will. There was signs of a struggle. The ground around her body was disturbed, and it was clear that she had struggled for a long time due to the injuries on her hands and around her neck. Obviously, with time, evidence deteriorates. So the detectives and the crime scene investigators were working against the clock and make sure they got everything they needed.
I felt like we had failed, but on the other hand, I knew that we needed as much evidence and information as we could gather in order to get justice for Kelsey.
On June 6th, we were at the Target Command Center, the detectives, and the chief of police came up to me and asked me if I knew where my parents were. And I said, I think they're at home. Why? And they said, it's important, we need to talk to them.
And we got a call from Captain Fredrickson, and he said to Greg, I need to talk to you.
And I said, is this news that we need to brace for? And he said, yeah, you better brace.
We were waiting at the end of our driveway for him to come and tell us that they had found Kelsey and she wasn't alive. And I just lost it and started screaming, not my Kels. Because I knew that, yeah, it was my Kels.
We pull up to my parents' house and Mom and Dad are sitting on the back of Dad's truck. And they're both so broken. Dad's face. I've never seen my dad cry like that. I remember seeing him take a deep breath because now they've got to tell us what they've just found out. And I just remember screaming, no, no. I don't want to hear it, no.
Stevie kind of folded up out here in the lawn. I think I may have even picked her up and carried her inside. I don't remember for sure. Lindsay, I know her boyfriend picked her up and carried her inside because she was so upset. And then Cody saw it on television.
I love the media for what they can do when people are missing. But I hate the media for not giving the authorities enough time to let the family know first. Because while my parents are being told that their daughter is killed, my little sister and brother are inside the house watching it on TV. That's how they found out that their older sister was killed, because of the helicopters above.
When we received the name Edwin Hall, we set about trying to locate him as quickly as possible, because if the public is seeing these images on the news, then the suspects are seeing those images as well.
At that point, we got a call from an attorney advising he had a young man by the name of Edwin Hall, who was the person in the video that had been on the news. The suspect was 24 and married with a 5-year-old child.
We were told by his coworkers at his place of employment that he saw his image on the news, and he left work to go contact an attorney.
Once Edwin was at the station, his attorney arrived a short time later. We started the interview, introduced ourselves. He did good handshake, looked you directly in the eye, and he basically asked for our information. What do you guys have? And that's not the way these interviews go.
After we found her body and we had a little time to grieve as a family, Mom, Dad, and I did another conference to let everyone know that she had been found and to thank them for helping us. No, it's not the outcome we wanted, but we still wanted everyone to know how grateful we were that they helped us look for our loved one when they didn't have to.
She can walk into a room of strangers and walk out with a room full of friends. Her excitement and passion for life was unmatched. She lived more in 18 years than many people do, with a great deal more time.
It was later on that evening that the police released the identity of her killer, his name and everything.
Police in Kansas have arrested a suspect in the murder of 18-year-old Kelsey Smith. Edwin Hall, police say, appears to be the person of interest identified on the store surveillance video.
I got a phone call from Wichita lieutenant who advised he had dealt with Edwin several times as a juvenile.
He had tried to stab his adopted sister with a knife during a fight, and he had attacked another man with a baseball bat.
The detectives told me that Edwin always had that demeanor of catch me if you can. And that was the same demeanor he brought to the interview.
The initial interview was about 4 hours. That's what Bob told me. And he said he acted like he was the smartest guy in the room.
I decided I was going to put some photos of Kelsey in front of Hall because we were basically getting nowhere. So when I pushed some photos in front of him, he said, "Oh, I did see her. She's got nice legs." And that gave us kind of a hook. And that was at the point his attorney said, "We're done, no more questions." He had completely stonewalled his attorney into believing he was innocent.
When he first came in with his attorney, he voluntarily submitted his DNA and his fingerprints. So while Edwin is there being interviewed with his attorney, we get a call from the crime lab.
And on his way out the door, he laughed at us and said, "Is that all you got?" And at that point, I got a text message from my boss saying that Edwin's thumbprint had been matched in the seatbelt buckle of Kelsey's car. And I told Edwin, "We are charging you with homicide and kidnapping." And he screamed something inaudible, and I just turned around and walked away. I knew right away I was going to give Kelsey's family some closure.
During the autopsy, they discovered that Kelsey had been strangled. The autopsy also revealed that Kelsey had been sexually assaulted, and the presence of bleach was found on her body. It had been poured on her intentionally the next day to try and wipe away any DNA evidence.
We saw the scratch marks on his legs during the interview, and he had a couple on his hands too. Tried to play it off, but everything collected at the crime scene had his DNA on it or hers.
I know Kelsey fought off her attacker. His DNA is in her fingernails. I know my sister fought for her life. She absolutely would have.
To kind of get away from people and to cope with what was happening, I took this guy's mugshot and I went to the shooting range. And you're not supposed to do rapid fire, but I was. And the range master came out and said, "Hey, you need to slow down." I said, "I'm sorry, I'm Kelsey Smith's dad." And he looked downrange and saw what I was shooting at, and he says, "Yeah, go ahead."
Okay, Kelsey. It's a list, and it's a box. How cute.
Shut up and open it.
Show everybody. It's a box with me on top.
Oh, this is the box for your birthday celebration, everybody.
This is 23.
Okay. In this box are several symbols to help Kelsey celebrate her 16th birthday. That is the letter that
I don't get to read.
that I wrote to your future husband.
Did you cry?
That he gets on your wedding day.
It's
probably a blank piece of
Yes,
paper.
I was giving her
It's
right
probably
this
just a
letter.
blank piece of paper, and then he'll just switch
Not
it
at the bottom.
before he
It's
gets
signed
married.
"Good luck." That's it. Yours it says "God help you." I know.
No, actually, yours says "Look out."
After Kelsey was killed, I gave the letter to John, the letter to the future husband, because I thought he should have it. John, he used to come around, and then over the years he stopped, and I think it hurts too much for him to come over here. I think Kelsey was the one for him, and John was the one for Kelsey. We were kind of at a loss as to what to do for a funeral for an 18-year-old girl. And John told us, he said, "I know what she wants."
We said, "How did you know?" And he said, "Because she talked to me about her funeral before she talked to me about her wedding."
I remember her funeral just being massive, huge. People waiting in line for hours just to come in to pay their respects to us.
It went on until way past midnight. There were so many people, and if they came out to honor our daughter, we were going to say thank you for them coming out.
She said she didn't want people to grieve and be sad. She wanted people to be happy and celebrate who she was. Obviously, she had no idea it would be so soon, but her wishes were met as much as we could.
Kelsey, like Belle from Beauty and the Beast, she said that when she went to prom, she was going to wear a dress like Belle, and she actually did. That's the dress that we ended up burying her in, the Belle dress.
Paul was being charged with first-degree homicide, still claiming innocence. He had entered a plea of not guilty.
The district attorney was pushing for the death penalty. We knew his narcissism would take over, and we knew at some point, in order to avoid the death penalty, he and his team would probably be willing to give some concessions.
He asked for a plea deal and asked that the death penalty be removed. So that information was taken to Greg and Missy to see if they would agree with it.
But a friend of ours told us that this is the best deal for us, because if it's a death penalty case, it's going to keep coming up and coming up and coming up. So we got to where we were okay with that.
During Hall's confession, he basically lined out his entire day. He said he had spent the morning on Adult Friend Finder and couldn't find anybody to hook up with. So he decided he was going to go to Oak Park Mall, trying to engage with random females, sometimes making lewd comments. Later on, he decided he was going to drive over to the Target store.
Edwin confessed that he had a handgun when he approached Kelsey in the Target parking lot. He shoved her into the driver's seat of her vehicle, and he climbed into the back seat behind her.
Once they got out to the park, she was pleading to let her go. And he goes, "Well, I'll tell you what, if you have sex with me, I'll let you go."
He took her belt out of the car and used that to strangle her.
He covered her up with the sticks and he left the area. and drove her car back to the mall. And then he walked back across the mall to his truck. So we were able to connect him completely from start to finish.
Edwin Hall could not identify with the pain that Kelsey went through, or the immense amount of trauma her family was experiencing.
I was angry and upset that my child had been taken. And just, I had this overwhelming emotion because it just wasn't fair.
On September 16th, 2008, Edwin Hall was sentenced to life without the possibility of parole for the sexual assault and murder of Kelsey Smith.
He looked at us and said he was sorry. My personal feeling was that the only thing he's sorry for is he got caught.
The Kelsey Smith Foundation is the foundation that Greg and I started after Kelsey was murdered because we wanted to make a difference.
My parents go around educating like high schoolers and young people on how to be aware of your surroundings. The foundation also helps to try to get Kelsey's law passed.
The Kelsey Smith Act says that a cell phone provider shall provide location information on a phone in an emergency situation at the request of law enforcement. And we know that it works because we hear stories from law enforcement agencies all over the United States that have used it.
Greg and Missy took a tragedy that happened to their family and turned it into something good. And I can't even begin to know or understand how many lives that has probably saved. I think that is the gift that Kelsey gave to all of us, is helping other people.
We talk about her constantly. She is still a member of our family. She's still my daughter. I just parent her differently now.
You just hold on to every memory you can. Because you don't want to forget her. I don't want to forget her laugh. She wouldn't want any of us to give up. We need to keep moving on as a family and sticking together and staying close. I just miss my sister.
I wish I could hear her laugh again. Or just sit and talk. She was always happy. She was always outgoing. She was always looking to have fun. And that's the way I choose to remember.
North Carolina never forgot the autumn of 1986, even though people spent decades pretending they had. Small towns survive on memory, but they also survive on silence. And sometimes silence becomes the strongest wall a community can build against the things it cannot explain. The road signs changed. The diners replaced their owners. Children became parents and then grandparents. Yet one question remained untouched by time, hanging over Pine Hollow like fog settling between the trees before sunrise. What happened to Rebecca Hale on the night she vanished without a trace? The official story was simple because official stories always are. 23 years old, elementary school teacher. Last seen leaving a church fundraiser shortly after 10 o'clock on October 17th. Her car discovered the following morning near Miller Creek. Engine cold, driver's door unlocked, purse still resting on the passenger seat. No signs of struggle, no weaknesses, no answers. By dawn, the town had transformed into a landscape of fear. Men who had hunted those woods their entire lives walked shoulder to shoulder with deputies, carrying flashlights that barely cut through the darkness. Mothers locked their doors before sunset. Store owners kept radios on all night. The local newspaper printed one headline in letters large enough for everyone to understand that normal life had ended. Young teacher missing. Community in shock. People expected a miracle. America has always loved miracles. But miracles require timing, and timing showed no mercy to Pine Hollow. Hours became days. Days became weeks. Search dogs lost the scent near the creek. Helicopters found nothing except endless forests stretching toward the mountains. Volunteers covered miles of muddy trails only to return home with empty hands and heavier hearts. Every rumor gained power. Every unfamiliar vehicle became suspicious. Every stranger carried possibility. Then came the whispers, not about outsiders, about family, because small towns know an uncomfortable truth that cities often forget. The people most capable of hurting you usually know your middle name. They attend your birthday parties. They sit beside you during Sunday service. They borrow sugar from your kitchen and wave politely from across the street. Rebecca Hale belonged to one of the oldest families in Pine Hollow. Respected, trusted, untouchable. 3 generations had built that reputation with hard work and careful appearances. Her father operated the local hardware store. Her uncles served on the county council. Her cousin coached high school baseball. The Hale name opened doors and ended arguments. Nobody wanted to imagine darkness living behind those doors. Nobody wanted to ask difficult questions. So they asked easier ones. Maybe she ran away. Maybe she wanted a new life. Maybe someone passing through the county offered danger that disappeared as quickly as it arrived. Theories multiplied because evidence refused to exist. And evidence is the only language fear truly respects. Winter arrived early that year. The search continued beneath gray skies and freezing rain. Volunteers became fewer. Reporters moved on to newer tragedies. Television cameras vanished. National attention evaporated with astonishing speed. Pine Hollow remained. The mystery remained. Rebecca's mother kept the porch light burning every night. People noticed. Nobody mentioned it. Human beings create rituals when reality becomes unbearable. Some pray. Some wait. Some leave lights on for daughters who never come home. The sheriff leading the investigation retired 2 years later without solving the case. His replacement inherited boxes filled with statements, maps, photographs, and unanswered questions. Every new detective believed fresh eyes might uncover something overlooked. Fresh eyes discovered only older frustrations. The years accumulated. 1987, 1990, 1995. Children born after Rebecca disappeared, graduated from high school without understanding why their parents still lowered their voices whenever Miller Creek entered conversation. The creek itself changed nothing. Water continued flowing. Trees continued growing. Nature carried no obligation to remember human suffering. Yet memory persisted. Always memory. Then, decades later, long after hope had become a habit rather than an expectation, a funeral brought the past back to life. The death of Arthur Hale should have been ordinary. 78 years old. Heart failure. A respected man mourned by neighbors who described him using familiar words. Dependable. Quiet. Traditional. Family-oriented. The language communities use when they wish to preserve comfortable narratives. But funerals gather people who have spent years avoiding one another. Old tensions return. Old resentments wake up. And sometimes, hidden beneath decades of forced politeness, secrets begin searching for air. Rebecca's younger cousin, Daniel Mercer Hale, attended the service reluctantly. 46 years old, recently divorced, living 3 counties away. A man who had mastered the art of staying absent from family events. Yet absence creates curiosity. Curiosity creates conversations. And conversations, under the weight of grief, occasionally become dangerous. That evening, after relatives departed and casseroles covered every kitchen surface in the house, Daniel remained alone with his older sister. Rain tapped against the windows. The kind of rain that makes memories feel closer than they actually are. Nobody knows precisely what was said. Nobody knows which sentence opened the door. But before midnight, Daniel Hale walked into the Pine Hollow Sheriff's Office and asked a question that froze every person inside the building. If somebody kept a secret for 40 years to protect their family, he asked quietly, what happens when protecting the family becomes more harmful than telling the truth? Experienced deputies understand that certain questions arrive carrying history. This was one of them. They invited him to sit. They offered coffee. And for the first time since October 1986, the impossible case that had defined an entire community began to move. Not because of science, not because of technology, because families possess long memories and fragile loyalties. Daniel spoke carefully, slowly, as though every word required permission from ghosts. He described arguments overheard during childhood, conversations that stopped when children entered rooms, his father's insistence that certain topics remain permanently buried, his uncle's drinking, his grandmother's habit of crying whenever Rebecca's name appeared in newspapers. Nothing concrete, nothing admissible, yet investigators recognized something invaluable. Pattern. The kind of pattern impossible to manufacture convincingly after decades. One sentence changed everything. Nobody in our family believed she ran away, Daniel said. They acted like they already knew something worse. Silence filled the room. The old case files returned from storage the following morning. Dust covered the boxes. Time had yellowed the paper. But mysteries do not age. They wait. Modern investigators reviewed evidence collected by another generation. They digitized photographs, enhanced recordings, re-examined witness statements that previous detectives considered insignificant. And there, buried inside thousands of pages, they found an interview conducted only 3 days after Rebecca disappeared. Her aunt, Margaret Hale. One paragraph, one forgotten detail. Rebecca had argued with a family member at the church fundraiser shortly before leaving. The name had been redacted publicly. Protected. Never investigated aggressively. Family disagreement. Officers concluded at the time. Nothing unusual. People argue. Families argue constantly. Then people go home. Except Rebecca never went home. The man involved in the argument had died years earlier. Samuel Hale, her older brother, respected businessman, church volunteer, beloved member of the community. The revelation struck Pine Hollow like lightning, finding the same tree twice. Old rumors returned. Old loyalties cracked. And for the first time in 40 years, investigators stopped asking what stranger might have entered town that night. They started asking what secrets had remained inside town all along. The morning after Daniel Hale walked into the sheriff's office, Pine Hollow woke beneath a curtain of cold rain and a rumor moving faster than weather. Nobody knew details. Nobody needed details. Small towns have always possessed their own nervous system. Information travels through church parking lots, grocery aisles, hardware counters, and front porches long before newspapers can print a single line. By noon, people were speaking Rebecca Hale's name again. Not softly, not carefully, openly. That alone felt unnatural. For 40 years, her disappearance had existed like an old scar hidden beneath clothing. Everyone knew it was there. Nobody touched it. Nobody asked whether it still hurt. Now the scar had been opened, and underneath, the wound remained fresh. Sheriff Eleanor Brooks understood the danger. Cold cases do not simply reopen. They awaken. They bring memory back from places people deliberately sealed shut. They force aging witnesses to confront younger versions of themselves. They expose how much fear can survive across generations. She ordered every surviving document transferred into a dedicated review room. Boxes filled entire tables. Photographs, cassette recordings, handwritten statements, search maps marked by men who are now dead. A civilization built from unanswered questions. The original investigators had worked with determination but limited tools. DNA, science barely existed in practical form. Digital records belonged to science fiction. Everything depended upon witnesses, instincts, and luck. Luck never arrived. Technology had advanced. Human secrets had not. Daniel Hale returned voluntarily that afternoon. He looked exhausted. Relief and terror occupied the same expression. People imagine that revealing family secrets brings liberation. Reality offers something messier. Truth demands payment, and families collect debts for generations. He described childhood memories with painful precision. Whispered arguments after midnight. His mother crying in the kitchen. His father insisting that Rebecca had become a problem nobody could fix. At the time, Daniel understood none of it. Children rarely do. They collect fragments. Meaning arrives decades later. One memory refused to leave him. 3 days after Rebecca vanished, he saw Samuel Hale burning papers behind the family barn. Not trash. Not ordinary documents. Photographs. Letters. Anything capable of holding memory. Daniel asked questions. Samuel answered with unusual anger. Some things disappear for a reason, he had said. The sentence remained buried in Daniel's mind for 40 years. Until his father's funeral. Until grief weakened old loyalties. Until silence became heavier than betrayal. The investigators listened carefully. No interruptions. No dramatic reactions. Memory is delicate. Push too hard, and it changes shape. Still, every statement expanded the same unsettling possibility. The danger Rebecca faced may never have come from outside Pine Hollow. It may have been waiting at the family dinner table. Across town, older residents began remembering details they had ignored for decades. Human memory behaves strangely. It sleeps. Then one event awakens another. Margaret Dawson, 82 years old, called the sheriff's office with trembling hands and a voice carrying half a century of regret. She remembered seeing Rebecca crying outside the church on the night she disappeared. Not ordinary tears, the kind that follow betrayal. Samuel stood nearby, arms crossed, expression unreadable. Margaret assumed it was a family disagreement. Private business, none of her concern. That assumption had haunted her ever since. Investigators added the statement to an expanding timeline. Another thread, another possibility. The web grew larger. Meanwhile, forensic specialists reopened physical evidence preserved against extraordinary odds. Rebecca's purse, her clothing left at home, items collected from her abandoned vehicle. Time had damaged much of it, but science excels at speaking with the dead. Tiny traces once considered meaningless now possessed value. Microscopic fibers, touch DNA, biological remnants invisible to investigators in 1986. The laboratory work began immediately. Nobody promised miracles. Cold cases teach humility. Still, hope returned to Pine Hollow like an unwelcome visitor nobody could refuse. The local newspaper printed a headline that spread across the state. Family secret may hold key to 1986 mystery. The article ignited everything. National media arrived. Podcasters set up equipment near the courthouse. Former residents called home asking questions their parents had avoided their entire lives. The past, once awakened, refused sleep. Rebecca's mother never lived to witness any of it. She died in 2014, still waiting. Still leaving the porch light on every evening. Neighbors maintained the tradition after her death. No discussion, no ceremony, just understanding. Some acts of love become permanent. Sheriff Brooks visited the Old Hale property personally. The house remained occupied by distant relatives. The barn where Daniel remembered Samuel burning papers still stood. Weathered, leaning slightly. Time had taken its share. Yet old places preserve energy. Not mystical energy, human energy, arguments, fear, silence, memory soaked into wood and earth alike. Forensic teams searched with modern equipment unimaginable in the 1980s. Ground-penetrating radar, digital imaging, chemical analysis, science moving carefully through landscapes shaped by secrets. Nothing emerged immediately. No hidden graves, no forgotten evidence. Only the stubborn reminder that truth rarely surrenders quickly. Back at headquarters, investigators reviewed Samuel Hale's life. The portrait unsettled them. Successful businessman, church volunteer, community fundraiser organizer. No criminal history. No public scandals. The perfect citizen. History contains countless examples of terrible acts committed by people universally described as respectable. Respectability, investigators know, is not evidence of innocence. Sometimes it functions as camouflage. Financial records revealed something curious. Weeks after Rebecca disappeared, Samuel withdrew a significant amount of cash. No explanation. No corresponding purchases. No paper trail. Just absence. Absence again. Mysteries thrive in absence. That evening, Daniel sat alone on the porch of his motel room, watching rain collect beneath yellow streetlights. He understood what people in town would call him. Traitor. Coward. Family destroyer. Perhaps they were right. But another thought had followed him for years. Rebecca never received the opportunity to defend herself. The dead depend entirely upon the courage of the living. And courage often arrives embarrassingly late. Night settled over Pine Hollow. The forest beyond Miller Creek remained black and silent. The same trees that watched volunteers search in 1986 still stood. The same water continued moving downstream. Nature had carried on without interruption. People had not. Inside the evidence room, a young forensic analyst made an unexpected observation. A single photograph from the original investigation showed tire impressions near Rebecca's abandoned car. Poor quality. Incomplete. Dismissed decades earlier. Digital enhancement transformed the image. The tread pattern appeared unusual. Heavy-duty. Agricultural. Consistent with vehicles commonly used on farms during the 1980s. The Hale family owned 2 such trucks. The realization spread through the department without anyone speaking above a whisper. Still no proof. Still no certainty. But the distance between suspicion and possibility continued shrinking. And somewhere beyond memory, beyond loyalty, beyond 40 years of silence, a truth hidden inside one family was beginning to understand that its time had almost run out. Rain dominated the next 3 days. Cold Carolina rain. Relentless. Gray. The kind that turns dirt roads into rivers of mud and makes old memories feel heavier than they already are. Pine Hollow existed beneath low clouds and nervous conversations. Every diner booth held whispers. Every church parking lot became an unofficial courtroom. People chose sides without admitting they were choosing sides. Some believed Daniel Hale had finally done the right thing. Others believed he had betrayed blood. In small towns, truth and loyalty rarely walk in the same direction. Sheriff Eleanor Brooks ignored the noise. Noise never solved the case. Evidence did. And evidence, after 40 years of silence, had started moving. The enhanced tire impressions from 1986 now occupied the center of the investigation. Modern analysis revealed characteristics overlooked by the original detectives. Deep agricultural treads, uncommon wear patterns, slight asymmetry along the rear axle. Machines remember details human beings miss. Records showed that only 3 vehicles in Pine Hollow matched those specifications during the autumn of 1986. 2 belonged to local farms. The third belonged to Samuel Hale. Nobody announced the finding publicly. Not yet. Experience demanded caution. A coincidence remains a coincidence until supported by something stronger. Still, another thread had attached itself to the growing structure. Another weight upon decades of silence. Meanwhile, Daniel Hale continued talking. Not dramatically. Not like a witness in a movie finally revealing hidden truths. Reality works differently. People remember in fragments. A smell. A sentence. The sound of footsteps on wooden floors. Memory arrives like scattered pieces of glass, forcing investigators to decide how they once fit together. Daniel remembered the week after Rebecca disappeared. His father stopped attending community search efforts unusually early. Samuel remained inside the family house for long periods. Doors closed. Conversations stopped whenever children entered rooms. One evening, Daniel heard his grandmother say something he never forgot. God will never forgive this family if we keep lying. At 12 years old, the meaning escaped him. At 46, it returned with terrifying clarity. The investigators documented every word. Not proof, but patterns. Always patterns. Across town, Margaret Dawson agreed to provide a formal recorded interview. Age had softened neither her memory nor her guilt. She remembered Rebecca standing outside the church hall on October 17th. Rain had started early that evening. Light drizzle, enough to send people toward their cars. Rebecca and Samuel argued near the entrance. No shouting, no violence. Something worse. Controlled anger. Margaret remembered Rebecca saying one sentence before walking away. I'm not protecting him anymore. Silence filled the interview room. Sheriff Brooks asked carefully, protecting who? Margaret closed her eyes. 40 years of uncertainty rested behind them. I don't know, she whispered. But Samuel looked terrified. Terrified. Not angry. Not embarrassed. Terrified. Human beings can fake many emotions. Fear remains difficult. The statement changed everything. Because fear suggests consequences. Fear suggests exposure. Fear suggests secrets large enough to destroy entire lives. The investigation widened immediately. Who exactly had Rebecca been protecting? And why had she decided to stop? Back at county archives, younger detectives searched through records untouched since the 1980s. Church committees, volunteer organizations, business partnerships, family trusts. The Hale name appeared everywhere. Influence creates visibility. Visibility creates blind spots. People stop questioning individuals they see constantly. Familiarity becomes armor. Then an old financial ledger produced something unexpected. A missing entry. $3,000 withdrawn from a shared family account 6 days before Rebecca vanished. No documentation. No explanation. Cash. The amount itself meant little. The timing meant everything. Samuel Hale authorized the withdrawal personally. 40 years later, nobody could explain why. Questions multiplied. Answers remained distant. Outside, Miller Creek flowed exactly as it had in 1986. Children avoided the area after dark. Not because their parents told them stories. Because communities communicate fear without language. Certain places inherit sadness. Certain roads inherit silence. The creek carried both. Sheriff Brooks ordered renewed searches along property once owned by the Hale family. Modern equipment covered acres that original volunteers never fully explored. Ground-penetrating radar moved systematically across fields and wooded areas. Technology offered possibilities unimaginable decades earlier. Still, nobody expected miracles. The dead rarely surrender themselves easily. On the second afternoon, investigators identified an anomaly near an abandoned tool shed behind what used to be Samuel Hale's farmland. Nothing dramatic, just disturbed soil patterns inconsistent with surrounding terrain. Age complicated interpretation. 40 years of weather erase countless details. Excavation began cautiously. Word spread immediately. Residents gathered at a distance. Watching. Waiting. History unfolding in real time. Nobody spoke loudly. The atmosphere resembled a funeral more than an investigation. People understood instinctively that certain discoveries carry permanent consequences. Daniel Hale remained away from the scene. He sat alone inside his motel room, listening to rain strike the windows. The television stayed off. The phone remained unanswered. He thought about family gatherings for childhood. Christmas dinners, birthdays, church picnics, laughter, photographs, normal life, or what appeared normal. Human beings possess extraordinary talent for building ordinary moments above extraordinary secrets. That realization hurt more than anything else. Because if Samuel knew something, if his father knew something, then everyone had continued living, working, celebrating, growing old, while Rebecca remained 23 forever. Night arrived before excavation produced results. The anomaly proved inconclusive. Old farming activity, buried equipment, nothing human. Disappointment settled over investigators with familiar cruelty. Hope rises quickly. Reality moves slower. Yet the search itself mattered. It announced something important to Pine Hollow. The past was no longer untouchable. No family name stood beyond examination. No memory remained sacred simply because time had passed. Truth possesses remarkable patience. It waits until people become brave enough or lonely enough to pursue it. Late that evening, another phone call reached the sheriff's office. Anonymous. Male voice. Older. Nervous. The caller refused identification, but he offered information. Samuel Hale visited Miller Creek 3 nights after Rebecca disappeared. Alone. After midnight. The caller saw headlights near the water while driving home from a neighboring county. At the time, he ignored it. Years later, he never forgot. Fear kept him silent. Fear and the understanding that accusing a Hale carried consequences in Pine Hollow. Before investigators could ask more questions, the line disconnected. No name, no number, only another ghost stepping briefly into the light. Sheriff Brooks replayed the recording multiple times. Background sounds offered little. Rain, an engine, breathing, nothing useful. Yet instinct told her the man spoke truth. Not because of what he said, because of how he said it. Regret leaves fingerprints upon the human voice. And this caller sounded like a man carrying 40 years of regret. Outside, thunder rolled across the mountains. The town slept uneasily. Porch lights remained on longer than usual. Curtains moved as residents watched unfamiliar vehicles pass through the streets. The reopening of Rebecca Hale's case had changed Pine Hollow in ways nobody anticipated. People no longer asked what happened in 1986. They asked who already knew. And those are very different questions. Because mysteries create sadness. Secrets create blame. Somewhere between Miller Creek and the aging photographs locked inside family albums, an old truth continued resisting exposure. But resistance requires energy. And after 4 decades, even the strongest lies begin to grow tired. The anonymous call refused to leave Sheriff Eleanor Brooks alone. She replayed it in her office long after midnight. Rain, breathing, a voice worn down by time and regret. People lie for many reasons. Fear, money, revenge, attention. But genuine remorse carries a different rhythm. It hesitates. It circles painful memories. It sounds like someone speaking against instincts built over an entire lifetime. The man claimed he saw Samuel Hale near Miller Creek 3 nights after Rebecca vanished. After midnight. Alone. No witnesses. No explanation. The detail itself mattered less than its timing. Because grief drives families toward churches, neighbors, and search parties. It does not usually drive them toward isolated creeks in the middle of the night. Unless something remains unfinished. Morning arrived beneath heavy clouds. Pine Hollow looked exhausted. Television vans occupied side streets. Reporters drank coffee inside diners where locals suddenly remembered urgent business elsewhere. The town had become a spectacle, and small communities never learned to enjoy that transformation. They endure it. Nothing more. At headquarters, investigators expanded their timeline. Rebecca attended the church fundraiser. She argued with Samuel. She left shortly after 10. Her vehicle appeared near Miller Creek the following morning. Now, an anonymous witness placed Samuel near that same location 72 hours later. The spaces between events were narrowing. Not enough for certainty. Enough for discomfort. Daniel Hale returned once again. Every visit seemed to age him. The burden of speaking grows heavier before it becomes lighter. He carried an old photograph album wrapped carefully inside a towel. Family pictures, birthdays, graduations, summer picnics, normal life frozen inside glossy paper. Sheriff Brooks studied them patiently. Then Daniel pointed toward one image taken during the summer of 1985. Rebecca stood beside Samuel, but something about the smile felt forced. People notice these things only after tragedy. Retrospective suspicion changes everything. The photograph itself revealed something else. Behind them stood an old green pickup truck. Agricultural tires. Heavy tread. The exact vehicle investigators had connected to the impressions near Miller Creek. The room became silent. Technology had enhanced the tire marks. Memory had identified the owner. Now history provided visual confirmation. Still no proof. Still no confession. But coincidence continued becoming expensive. Daniel spoke quietly. Rebecca stopped trusting Samuel during her last year alive. Sheriff Brooks leaned forward. Did she ever say why? He shook his head. No, but she used to write everything down. Journals, notes, lists. She never kept secrets from paper. The sentence landed with enormous weight. Journals, private thoughts, hidden truths preserved beyond memory. Investigators immediately searched evidence inventories from 1986. No journals had ever been recovered. None reported missing. None mentioned during early interviews. An absence. Again, always absence. The question emerged naturally. If Rebecca documented her life so carefully, where had those writings gone? And who benefited from their disappearance? Across town, Margaret Dawson remembered something new. Memory functions like thawing ice. The deeper layers emerge last. She contacted authorities before lunch. Rebecca visited her house 1 week before vanishing. They drank tea, talked about ordinary things, school children, church events, family gatherings. Then Rebecca said something unusual. If anything ever happens to me, people need to stop believing appearances. Margaret assumed it referred to romantic troubles. Nothing more. Young people say dramatic things. Life moves on, until it doesn't. Now the words returned with terrifying clarity. Stop believing appearances. The Hale family had spent generations mastering appearances. Respectability, faith, community leadership, the architecture of trust. Could Rebecca have discovered something capable of shattering all of it? Investigators reopened financial records. Modern software examined patterns impossible to identify manually decades earlier. Samuel Hale's accounts displayed curious activity during the months before Rebecca disappeared. Large cash withdrawals, short-term loans, unexplained transfers between family businesses. Not criminal, not definitive, but unstable. Pressure leaves traces. Financial pressure, especially. People under stress make mistakes. They create motives. The possibility emerged cautiously. What if Rebecca knew something unrelated to violence? Something involving money, fraud, deception, family betrayal. And what if silence became impossible to maintain? Questions multiplied faster than answers. Meanwhile, forensic teams returned to the old Hale property. Not the fields, not the barn, the house itself. Current owners cooperated willingly. Time had altered much of the structure, but certain spaces remained untouched. The basement attracted immediate interest. Stone walls, low ceilings, storage areas preserved almost exactly as they existed in the 1980s. Ground-penetrating equipment identified irregularities beneath one section of concrete. Nothing dramatic, just difference. Human beings noticed differences. Excavation approval arrived before sunset. Residents gathered beyond police barriers. Watching, waiting. The atmosphere carried extraordinary tension. Nobody spoke loudly. Children remained unusually quiet. Pine Hollow understood instinctively that history stood near crossroads. Either 40 years of suspicion would collapse, or 40 years of silence would finally break. Daniel stayed away. He couldn't bear it. Family loyalty, even wounded loyalty, leaves scars. Part of him still hoped everyone had been wrong. Part of him still wanted Samuel to remain the older brother from childhood memories rather than the center of a nightmare. Human beings cling desperately to familiar versions of reality. Truth often demands demolition. Night fell. The work continued beneath portable lights. Concrete disappeared piece by piece. Dust filled the air. Hours passed. Nothing. Then workers uncovered old wooden boards beneath the foundation. Original construction materials. Unexpected. Carefully arranged. As though somebody had modified the basement long after the house was built. Forensic specialists halted everything. Documentation first. Always documentation. History punishes haste. The boards came apart slowly. Beneath them lay empty space. Small, hidden, deliberate, not large enough for anything dramatic. Not a secret room, not a burial site, just a compartment. Inside rested a metal box. Rust covered every surface. The lock had deteriorated beyond usefulness. Nobody spoke. The silence itself became overwhelming, because everyone understood one simple truth. People build hidden compartments for things they cannot afford to lose, or things they cannot afford to reveal. The box emerged into cold evening air. 40 years of darkness ending beneath television lights and collective breath. Sheriff Brooks opened it personally. Inside, letters, dozens of them, bound together with faded ribbon. Photographs, receipts, documents, paper preserved by secrecy and time. Every item carried the same name, Rebecca Hale. The entire town seemed to stop breathing. No one touched anything further. Forensic teams secured the contents immediately. Chain of custody, evidence protocols, modern procedure standing guard over ancient secrets. Yet one fact had already become impossible to ignore. Someone deliberately hid Rebecca's personal belongings beneath the Hale family home. Someone ensured investigators in 1986 would never find them. Someone believed the truth contained inside those papers posed a greater danger than 40 years of suspicion. Outside, rain finally stopped. Clouds began breaking apart. For the first time in days, moonlight touched Pine Hollow. And inside a sealed evidence room, letters written by a 23-year-old woman waited patiently to tell a story no one else had been willing to tell for 4 decades. The letters changed everything before anyone even read a single word. Their existence alone shattered 40 years of assumptions. Rebecca Hale had not simply vanished from Pine Hollow. Pieces of her life had been deliberately removed, hidden, protected from investigators, protected from neighbors, protected, perhaps, from the truth itself. Sheriff Eleanor Brooks stood inside the evidence room long after midnight, staring at the rusted metal box resting beneath fluorescent lights. Time had failed to destroy its contents. Whoever concealed it understood something essential. Paper survives when silence is carefully maintained. The ribbon binding the letters had faded to a pale gray. Dust coated the envelopes. Yet Rebecca's handwriting remained unmistakably alive. Elegant, precise, confident. A young woman speaking across 40 years of darkness. Forensic specialists documented every page before anyone touched them. Gloves, photographs, digital scans. Modern science approaching memory with extraordinary caution. History deserved nothing less. Outside, Pine Hollow waited. Rumors multiplied with astonishing speed. Hidden letters, secret documents, family betrayal. The town existed in a state somewhere between anticipation and dread. People who had defended the Hale family for decades suddenly spoke with less certainty. People who always suspected something darker felt vindicated. Neither group understood what was actually coming, because the truth rarely resembles the stories communities tell themselves. The first letter opened shortly after sunrise. It was addressed to Rebecca's closest friend, never mailed, never delivered. Dated October 11th, 1986. 6 days before she disappeared. The room remained completely silent as investigators read. Rebecca wrote about exhaustion, about pressure, about carrying knowledge she no longer wished to carry. No accusations, no names, only fragments. One sentence stopped everyone. I think loving your family becomes dangerous when loyalty matters more than honesty. Nobody spoke. The words hung in the air with terrible weight. Another line followed. People trust Samuel because they see what he wants them to see. Silence deepened. For 40 years, Samuel Hale had existed in public memory as a respected citizen. Dead now, unable to defend himself, unable to explain, unable to answer questions that multiplied with every sentence written by his sister. Sheriff Brooks proceeded carefully. The dead deserve fairness. The living deserve truth. Balancing those principles had become the defining challenge of the investigation. Additional letters revealed more. Rebecca had discovered financial irregularities involving family businesses, loans hidden through false bookkeeping, property transactions benefiting certain relatives at the expense of others. Nothing violent, nothing sensational, just deception, the ordinary kind, the kind capable of poisoning relationships slowly across generations. Yet Rebecca's concerns extended beyond money. Repeatedly, she mentioned fear. Not fear for herself, fear of exposure, fear of what would happen if secrets reached public view. The language remained frustratingly indirect, as though she expected someone else might eventually read her private thoughts. Caution inside intimacy. Even her journals possessed restraint. Then investigators found the photographs. Dozens. Family gatherings, church events, community fundraisers, normal moments, until one image changed the atmosphere entirely. Samuel Hale stood beside a man nobody immediately recognized. The photograph carried a date, September 1986, 1 month before Rebecca disappeared. Facial recognition software meant nothing in this context. Human memory mattered instead. Daniel Hale identified the stranger within seconds. Victor Crane, a former business associate, transient, drifter, known for moving between counties and performing seasonal labor. He vanished from Pine Hollow shortly after Rebecca disappeared. Never questioned, never investigated, simply gone. The name struck investigators like cold water. History contains countless overlooked figures, people existing at the edges of important stories. Sometimes the edges matter more than the center. Records surface quickly. Victor Crane possessed a minor criminal history. Fraud charges, theft allegations, nothing violent, nothing substantial. Still, his connection to Samuel expanded the investigation dramatically. What business linked them together? Why did Rebecca mention fear surrounding family secrets? And why did Victor disappear precisely when the town entered chaos? Questions bred more questions. Meanwhile, forensic analysts examined fingerprints preserved on the hidden documents. Time had damaged much, yet technology achieved remarkable things. Partial matches emerged. Rebecca, Samuel, and one unidentified set. Possibly Victor Crane. Possibly someone else entirely. The uncertainty remained maddening. Outside the sheriff's office, reporters gathered in increasing numbers. National interest exploded. The mystery that once belonged exclusively to Pine Hollow now belonged to everyone. Headlines spread across the country. Family secrets rock North Carolina cold case. Hidden letters discovered after 4 decades. People consumed tragedy with endless appetite. Residents hated it. But attention brings pressure. Pressure brings resources. Resources bring answers. Sometimes the bargain proves worthwhile. That evening, Daniel Hale visited the old family cemetery. Rainwater still clung to the grass. The names on the stones represented generations of pride and permanence. He stood before Samuel's grave for a long time. No anger, no accusations, only confusion. The brother he remembered taught him to fish, helped him repair bicycles, protected him from schoolyard bullies. Human beings contain multitudes. Love and darkness coexist more often than society prefers to admit. Daniel wanted explanations. The dead offered silence. Back at headquarters, investigators opened the final envelope from the metal box. Unlike the others, it carried no address, no stamp, no indication it was ever meant for anyone else. The handwriting appeared rushed, uneven, anxiety preserved in ink. The date, October 16th, 1986. 1 day before Rebecca vanished. Every person in the room understood the significance immediately. Sheriff Brooks read slowly. Rebecca described another confrontation with Samuel. She accused him of continuing involvement with Victor Crane despite promises to end their business relationship. She mentioned documents, records, information hidden from the rest of the family. Then came the sentence that transformed everything. If I tell people what I know, this town will never look at us the same way again. Silence. Absolute silence. Because communities survive on shared narratives. Destroy the narrative, and the entire structure begins to shake. The letter continued. Rebecca planned to meet someone after the church fundraiser. Someone capable of helping her expose whatever had been happening behind closed doors. No name, no location, just intention. The final lines looked different. Written later. Faster. Almost frantic. Samuel knows I'm finished protecting him. He said family must stay family no matter the cost. The sentence ended there. No signature. No farewell. Nothing. The room remained motionless. 40 years of uncertainty compressed into a single unfinished thought. Nobody declared conclusions. Nobody celebrated breakthroughs. Experience prohibited such recklessness. Yet a terrible possibility had emerged. Rebecca Hale may not have disappeared because of random violence. She may have disappeared because she finally decided to stop carrying someone else's secrets. Outside, night settled over Pine Hollow. Porch lights glowed against wet roads. Church bells echoed through cold air. The town that built its identity upon trust now faced an unbearable question. What if the greatest danger Rebecca ever encountered wore the same family name she did? And somewhere beyond memory, beyond grief, beyond the carefully maintained image of respectability, a hidden truth that survived for decades underground was finally beginning to breathe. The unfinished letter spread across Pine Hollow without ever being publicly released. Nobody leaked the contents. Nobody needed to. Communities possess instincts sharper than official statements. People recognized movement. They recognized the tension on familiar faces. They recognized that investigators no longer spoke about Rebecca Hale as a victim of unfortunate mystery. They spoke about her as a woman who knew something powerful enough to survive 40 years, something dangerous enough to bury with her memory. The rain finally stopped. Cold autumn sunlight broke through the clouds for the first time in days, illuminating a town that suddenly looked much older than it had the week before. Truth ages places. Sheriff Eleanor Brooks gathered her team early that morning. The evidence wall had transformed completely. Rebecca's letters occupied the center. Samuel Hale's financial records stretched outward like cracks in glass. Victor Crane's movements formed another branch. Every thread pointed toward October 17th, 1986. Toward one night, one argument, one decision from which nobody ever recovered. The question remained brutally simple. What exactly did Rebecca discover? The financial irregularities mattered, certainly. Hidden loans, missing funds, private agreements concealed from other family members. But experienced investigators understood human behavior. People rarely kill to protect embarrassment. They kill to protect consequences. Consequences large enough to destroy identities. Large enough to erase entire family legacies. The documents recovered from the metal box underwent detailed analysis. One receipt immediately attracted attention. September 28, 1986. Cash payment, $8,000. Recipient, Victor Crane. No explanation. No contract. No official business purpose. Samuel Hale's signature appeared at the bottom. The amount, adjusted for the time period, represented significant money. Enough to solve problems. Enough to create silence. Or enough to buy loyalty. The room remained quiet. Patterns were becoming harder to ignore. Daniel Hale arrived shortly before noon. His face carried the exhaustion of a man watching childhood memories collapse in real time. Sheriff Brooks showed him the photograph of Victor Crane. He nodded instantly. Nobody liked him. Simple words. Heavy meaning. Why? Daniel looked toward the window. He made people uncomfortable. Always asking questions. Always acting like he knew things he shouldn't know. Another pause. My father hated him. And Samuel? Daniel hesitated. Samuel needed him. Needed. Not liked. Not trusted. Needed. Investigators wrote the word carefully. Human relationships reveal themselves through language. Need creates vulnerability. Need creates leverage. Need creates fear. Across town, older residents continued remembering details buried beneath decades of routine. A retired mechanic named Walter Jenkins contacted authorities. 81 years old, sharp memory, steady voice. He remembered repairing Samuel Hale's green pickup truck 2 weeks after Rebecca vanished. Nothing unusual, until Samuel requested something extremely specific. Replacement tires. Immediately. Cash payment. No paperwork. Walter thought little of it at the time. Farmers replace tires constantly. But memory changes under different light. The original tires matched the pattern discovered near Miller Creek. The significance settled heavily across the investigation. Still no direct evidence. Still no certainty. Yet another coincidence had become expensive. Very expensive. Meanwhile, forensic analysts completed examination of the hidden photographs. One image produced a remarkable discovery. Reflected inside a store window behind Samuel and Victor Crane stood Rebecca herself. Partially obscured. Watching. The expression on her face stopped everyone. Not anger. Not sadness. Recognition. The look of someone witnessing confirmation of something previously suspected. The date remained clear. September 1986. Weeks before she disappeared. Rebecca knew about Samuel and Victor. The relationship mattered. The question was why. That afternoon, investigators finally located surviving business records connected to Victor Crane. Most had vanished, destroyed, lost, or intentionally removed. But one ledger remained inside county archives. Forgotten, misfiled, waiting. The contents shocked everyone. Payments from Samuel Hale. Regular, substantial, spanning nearly 3 years. No legitimate explanation accompanied them. The descriptions used vague language. Consulting, transportation, services rendered, meaningless words, paper shields protecting hidden realities. Sheriff Brooks understood immediately. People invent complicated explanations only when simple explanations become dangerous. What exactly had Victor Crane been doing for Samuel Hale? And why did Rebecca intend to expose it? Outside, Pine Hollow struggled with identity. Church attendance dropped. Conversations became strained. Families who once gathered comfortably now avoided certain topics entirely. The reopening of one cold case had begun reopening dozens of smaller wounds. Old arguments, old suspicions, old loyalties. Truth rarely limits its damage to intended targets. The community itself had become part of the investigation. Rebecca's former students, now middle-aged adults, shared memories through local newspapers. Kindness, patience, encouragement. She remembered birthdays, stayed after school to help struggling children, delivered books to elderly neighbors. The image emerging from collective memory remained remarkably consistent. Rebecca Hale cared deeply about people, deeply enough, perhaps, to risk everything when confronted with dishonesty. Human beings who value truth often underestimate how much others value secrecy. The collision can be catastrophic. Late that evening, another breakthrough arrived. Forensic technicians enhanced an old cassette recording from the original investigation. Background interviews conducted near the church fundraiser. Mostly useless. Ambient noise. Footsteps. Conversations. Then, buried beneath static, voices emerged. Rebecca. Samuel. The quality remained poor. Certain words impossible to identify. Yet one sentence appeared unmistakably clear. Rebecca's voice. Firm. Controlled. I'm telling them tomorrow. Silence followed. Then Samuel answered. 5 words. Words capable of haunting generations. You don't understand what happens. The recording ended. No further context. No explanation. Just fear preserved on magnetic tape. Sheriff Brooks listened repeatedly. Each time produced the same reaction. The same cold realization. Samuel sounded terrified. Not furious. Not aggressive. Terrified. People fear exposure when consequences exceed imagination. What exactly waited beyond Rebecca's decision to speak? Night settled over Pine Hollow. Clear skies at last. Stars visible above Miller Creek. The same stars Rebecca saw during her final evening. The same stars Samuel saw 3 nights later when an anonymous witness placed him near the water after midnight. Nature remained indifferent. People remained haunted. Daniel Hale sat alone outside his motel room once more. He held an old family photograph in trembling hands. Children smiling. Parents laughing. A moment permanently untouched by future tragedy. He searched the faces for answers, for warning signs, for evidence that darkness had always existed beneath ordinary life. He found nothing, because monsters rarely announce themselves, and secrets rarely begin as secrets. They begin as compromises, small ones, reasonable ones, necessary ones, until eventually an entire family wakes up inside a lie too large to escape. Somewhere beyond memory, beyond death, beyond 40 years of silence, Rebecca Hale's unfinished promise still echoed through Pine Hollow. I'm telling them tomorrow. Tomorrow never came. But after 4 decades, tomorrow was finally beginning to arrive. Tomorrow arrived 40 years late. Yet when it finally came, it carried the weight of an entire town. The enhanced recording spread through the investigation like electricity. I'm telling them tomorrow. 5 ordinary words. 5 words capable of destroying reputations, rewriting history, and exposing whatever Rebecca Hale had discovered during the final weeks of her life. Then Samuel's answer. You don't understand what happens. Not anger, not a threat. Fear. Raw, unmistakable fear. Sheriff Eleanor Brooks listened to the exchange again before sunrise. Human beings reveal themselves most honestly when frightened. Voices change, breathing shifts, language becomes simpler. Samuel Hale sounded like a man standing at the edge of catastrophe. The question haunting everyone remained brutally direct. What exactly was Rebecca preparing to tell? The answer, investigators increasingly believed, extended far beyond hidden finances. Money alone rarely creates generational silence. Money alone rarely convinces entire families to protect appearances at all costs. Something larger existed beneath the surface. Something capable of infecting an entire bloodline with fear. Morning settled over Pine Hollow beneath clear skies. The storm had passed. The town looked deceptively peaceful. Children boarded school buses. Shop owners unlocked doors. Church bells rang with familiar certainty. Ordinary life persisted. It always does, even when history prepares to explode beneath it. At headquarters, analysts continued examining the business connections between Samuel Hale and Victor Crane. The payments made no sense. Thousands of dollars transferred over multiple years. No contracts. No registro de enterprises. No taxable services. Just money moving quietly through trusted hands. Financial investigators developed several theories. Transportation. Illegal land agreements. Fraud. None felt complete. Then Sarah Whitmore, the youngest member of the task force, noticed something overlooked by everyone else. The dates. Every large payment to Victor occurred shortly before major property acquisitions involving the Hale family. Farms, storage facilities, timber rights. The pattern repeated itself with disturbing precision. Victor Crane wasn't simply receiving money. He was facilitating something intentionally hidden from official channels. Sheriff Brooks requested every surviving land record connected to the Hale name. Boxes arrived before noon. Dust covered. Forgotten. Waiting. History possesses extraordinary patience. Inside one folder, investigators discovered a transaction that should never have existed. An undeveloped parcel near Miller Creek. Purchased secretly in 1984. Sold quietly 18 months later. No public announcement. No community knowledge. The buyer? Samuel Hale. The intermediary handling negotiations? Victor Crane. The location sent silence through the room. The land bordered the exact area where Rebecca's vehicle had been discovered. Coincidence remained possible, but coincidence had become increasingly unaffordable. Meanwhile, Daniel Hale remembered something new. Memory continued returning in waves. Unpredictable, painful, necessary. He visited the sheriff's office carrying an old cigar box found among his father's belongings after the funeral. Inside rested receipts, letters, random family documents. Nothing remarkable, until one folded piece of paper emerged from the bottom. A handwritten note. No date, no signature, just one sentence. Rebecca knows about the Creek property. Samuel needs to handle it before she talks. The handwriting belonged to Daniel's father. For several moments, nobody moved. The sentence existed beyond interpretation. No ambiguity, no alternative meaning. Rebecca knew something. The family knew she knew. And somebody believed the situation required handling. The room felt suddenly smaller. Daniel stared at the note with hollow eyes. My father kept this all these years. Nobody answered, because no answer could soften that reality. Across Pine Hollow, old loyalties continued unraveling. People who defended Samuel for decades now spoke with uncertainty. Former business partners avoided reporters. The town itself had entered a strange state. Not grief, not anger, recognition. The recognition that entire communities sometimes participate in silence without realizing it. Nobody lies. Nobody asks. Everybody survives. Until one person refuses. Rebecca, investigators increasingly believed, had become that person. The woman who decided appearances mattered less than truth. History rarely treats such people gently. That afternoon, forensic teams returned to the abandoned Creek property. Modern equipment scanned every inch of land once controlled by Samuel and Victor. The forest remained quiet. Birds moved through bare branches. Water flowed with ancient indifference. Nature keeps no records. Human beings must create their own. Ground-penetrating radar identified several anomalies. Most proved insignificant. Old farming debris, buried machinery, discarded equipment. Then a fourth signal appeared. Different, deliberate, rectangular, located near the tree line, less than 300 yards from where Rebecca's car had been found. The atmosphere changed immediately. Experience taught caution. False hopes destroy investigations. Still, nobody ignored what stood before them. Excavation began. Slowly, carefully, every layer documented, every movement recorded. The entire town seemed to hold its breath. Television crews gathered beyond police lines. Residents watched from distant roads. Nobody spoke loudly. Certain moments demand silence. Hours passed. Nothing. Then what emerged? Old wood. Weathered. Artificial. The shape suggested a storage crate buried decades earlier. Not large. Not dramatic. But unquestionably intentional. Sheriff Brooks arrived before sunset. The crate came into daylight for the first time in 40 years. Rusted hinges. Decayed edges. No identifying marks. History often conceals itself inside ordinary containers. Forensic specialists opened it with extraordinary care. Inside rested several objects wrapped in deteriorating cloth. Documents, a flashlight, an old camera, and one item that froze every person present. Rebecca Hale's journal. Leather-bound. Initials engraved across the front cover. H. Silence expanded across the clearing. Absolute. Overwhelming. The journal everyone assumed lost. The voice everyone believed erased. Waiting beneath the earth all along. Deliberately hidden. Protected from investigators. Protected from time. Protected, perhaps, from truths too dangerous for public view. Daniel Hale received the news while sitting alone at the motel. He closed his eyes. 40 years. An entire lifetime. And Rebecca had been speaking beneath their feet the entire time. Night descended before anyone opened the journal. Procedure mattered. Evidence mattered. Respect mattered. The dead deserve patience, especially after waiting 4 decades. Sheriff Brooks carried the recovered items personally into evidence storage. The leather cover felt cold beneath protective gloves. Heavy, significant, a human life compressed into written pages. Outside, Pine Hollow glowed beneath streetlights and quiet anxiety. Families gathered around dinner tables. Conversations stopped when children entered rooms. Old habits survive remarkably well. But habits weaken, secrets weaken, and somewhere inside that journal, written by a young woman who refused to confuse loyalty with honesty, waited the truth Samuel Hale feared more than anything else. The truth he believed would change how an entire town saw his family. Tomorrow, at last, Rebecca would finally tell them. Rebecca Hale began speaking again on a cold Thursday morning, 40 years after her voice had disappeared. The journal rested beneath bright forensic lights, leather cracked by time, pages yellowed but intact. A young woman's private world preserved beneath earth and silence, while generations above continued building lives around an unanswered question. Sheriff Eleanor Brooks delayed opening it for as long as procedure allowed, not out of fear, out of respect. Some objects deserve a moment of stillness before history changes forever. Outside, Pine Hollow already sensed transformation approaching. The discovery of the journal had spread overnight. Nobody knew its contents. Nobody needed to. Hope itself had become news. For the first time since October of 1986, people believed Rebecca Hale might finally explain her own disappearance. The dead rarely receive such opportunities. At 9:13 in the morning, forensic specialists completed documentation. Gloves adjusted. Cameras ready. Silence filled the room. Sheriff Brooks opened the first page. Rebecca's handwriting remained elegant, careful, methodical, the script of someone who believed thoughts deserved order even when life did not. The early entries contained ordinary things. School stories, church events, family gatherings, the rhythms of small-town existence. Children learning multiplication tables, neighbors organizing charity drives, birthdays, recipes, human life in its simplest form. Then the tone changed. Subtly at first. A sentence here, an observation there, questions without answers. Rebecca began mentioning Victor Crane. Not frequently, not directly, but enough. She disliked him immediately. Described him as a man who always looked beyond people instead of at them. A man who measured conversations. A man who carried secrets comfortably. One entry from March 1986 stopped everyone. Samuel says Victor helps with business matters, but nobody can explain what business requires meetings after midnight. The room remained silent. Midnight meetings, hidden payments, unexplained property acquisitions. The puzzle pieces continued aligning. Further entries revealed growing tension between Rebecca and her brother. Not hatred, not hostility, disappointment. She loved Samuel. That truth appeared repeatedly, which made everything else infinitely more tragic. People suffer most when betrayed by those they trust completely. By summer, Rebecca's concerns had intensified. She wrote about missing documents inside family records, property transfers that made no sense, money appearing and disappearing without explanation. Her father avoided questions. Her mother changed subjects. Relatives became uncomfortable whenever Victor Crane entered conversation. One line carried particular weight. Everyone acts like preserving the family matters more than understanding what the family has become. Nobody spoke, because entire communities sometimes operate according to that principle. Preservation over truth. Appearance over reality. Loyalty over honesty. The cost arrives later, usually paid by someone innocent. Meanwhile, investigators revisited Victor Crane's history. The deeper they searched, the stranger his life appeared. Multiple addresses, temporary employment, short-term partnerships, an existence built upon movement. No lasting roots, no meaningful attachments. People like Victor often survive by becoming necessary to others. Necessary people learn dangerous information. Necessary people gain leverage. Sheriff Brooks suspected Samuel's relationship with Victor followed precisely that pattern. Need, dependency, fear, the oldest trap in human history. At noon, Rebecca's journal delivered its first true shock. Entry dated August 14th, 1986. The handwriting looked rushed. Emotion visible even across 4 decades. I followed Samuel tonight. Every investigator leaned closer. Rebecca described watching her brother drive toward the Old Creek property. Victor Crane arrived separately. The two men met near a storage building hidden among trees. Rebecca remained distant, unable to hear conversation, but she witnessed an exchange. Boxes, documents, cash, something being moved, something requiring secrecy. Then came a sentence that transformed the investigation. I think they're hiding more than money. Silence. Complete silence. Because money creates greed. Something beyond money creates fear. Rebecca continued writing. She believed Victor possessed information capable of destroying Samuel. Information Samuel desperately wanted contained. The payments weren't business expenses. They were protection. The realization settled over the room like cold fog. Blackmail? Possibly. Coercion? Possibly. An old mistake returning with enormous consequences. Possibly. Nothing certain. Yet everything suddenly made more sense. Daniel Hale arrived during the afternoon. Sheriff Brooks showed him selected passages. His expression collapsed gradually. Childhood memories rearranged themselves in real time. I remember Victor visiting the house once, he whispered. Nobody interrupted. Memory required space. My father told us to stay upstairs. He said grown-up problems were being discussed. Another pause. Samuel looked terrified after Victor left. Terrified. Again that word. Again that same emotion. Fear connected every thread in the case. Fear of exposure. Fear of consequences. Fear of truths too large to manage. Outside, Pine Hollow existed in a state of suspended breath. People gathered in diners without eating. Church groups prayed for answers they privately feared receiving. Reporters waited beside courthouse steps. The town understood something irreversible had begun. The old version of history was dying. The replacement remained unknown. Late in the afternoon, investigators reached entries from early October 1986. The final weeks. The dangerous weeks. Rebecca's writing became increasingly urgent. She described arguments with Samuel. Long conversations ending in silence. Promises made and broken. One passage chilled everyone present. Samuel keeps saying some truths hurt more people than lies ever could. The sentence lingered. Human beings have justified terrible acts through precisely that reasoning. Protecting others. Maintaining peace. Avoiding destruction. The language changes. The principle remains. Rebecca disagreed. Passionately. Repeatedly. Truth mattered. No matter the cost. She intended to expose whatever had been hidden. That much had become undeniable. Then investigators reached October 15th, 2 days before she vanished. The entry filled nearly 6 pages. Every word carried tension. Rebecca finally named her fear. Not Victor Crane. Not financial crimes. Family. She believed multiple relatives knew portions of the truth. Different pieces. Different silences. An architecture of secrecy built collectively over years. No single villain. No single lie. Just generations choosing comfort over confrontation. One line struck Daniel particularly hard. We have mistaken loyalty for love. He left the room afterward, unable to continue. Some truths wound the living more deeply than the dead. Night approached. Only a handful of pages remained unread. The final entries. The last known thoughts of a woman who disappeared 40 years earlier. Nobody rushed. Nobody demanded immediate answers. Patience had already lasted 4 decades. One additional night meant nothing. Sheriff Brooks secured the journal personally. Locked evidence. Multiple signatures. Absolute procedure. Outside, stars appeared above Pine Hollow. The same stars Rebecca once watched while deciding whether to tell the truth. The same stars Samuel watched while fearing what that truth might become. The same stars overlooking Miller Creek and the hidden property where secrets had slept beneath soil and memory. Inside the sheriff's office, the final pages waited. And somewhere within those remaining lines lay the reason a respected family spent 40 years protecting silence more fiercely than innocence itself. Nobody slept well that night. Not the investigators. Not Daniel Hale. Not the people of Pine Hollow. The final pages of Rebecca's journal existed like a storm sitting just beyond the horizon. Everyone understood they contained something important. Everyone understood that once those words entered the world, there would be no returning to the comfortable version of history that had survived for 4 decades. Truth only moves in one direction, forward. Morning arrived cold and clear. The mountains surrounding Pine Hollow looked almost unreal beneath early sunlight. Beautiful, peaceful, entirely indifferent to human suffering. Sheriff Eleanor Brooks entered the evidence room before anyone else. The journal waited exactly where she left it. A young woman frozen at 23 years old. A voice interrupted, but not erased. Today, she would finish speaking. The remaining pages began with an entry dated October 16th, 1986. One day before Rebecca vanished. The handwriting looked different, faster, less controlled. Determination mixed with fear. The words carried urgency. I cannot keep pretending this belongs only to our family anymore. Silence settled across the room. Rebecca described another confrontation with Samuel. Long, emotional, private. He begged her to stay quiet. Not for himself, for everyone else. Their parents, the church, the town, the family name. He believed exposure would destroy generations of work and trust. Rebecca believed the destruction had already happened. Only nobody wanted to admit it. The argument ended without resolution. Samuel left. Rebecca remained, writing, thinking, preparing for tomorrow. Then came the revelation investigators had chased for weeks. Victor Crane had been blackmailing Samuel for years. Not over money, not over business fraud, over an event that occurred long before 1986. An accident, a terrible accident. The details remained incomplete. Rebecca herself only knew fragments, but she understood enough. Years earlier, while developing property near Miller Creek, Samuel and Victor concealed an incident involving an undocumented laborer injured during illegal construction work. The man disappeared from official records. No report, no investigation, no accountability. Victor preserved evidence. Samuel preserved silence. Need became dependence. Dependence became fear. The payments continued. The lies expanded. Entire families built their lives atop a foundation of secrets. The room remained motionless. Not murder. Not initially. Something perhaps more ordinary, and therefore more believable. Human beings often destroy themselves protecting old mistakes that should have been confessed immediately. Rebecca intended to expose everything. The hidden payments, the false records, the decades of deception. She planned to meet an investigative journalist from Raleigh after the church fundraiser. The meeting never happened. Sheriff Brooks read the next lines twice. Then a third time. Rebecca wrote, Samuel said people will lose faith in everyone if this becomes public. I told him faith built upon lies deserves to collapse. Nobody spoke. The sentence echoed through the room. Faith built upon lies deserves to collapse. Powerful words, dangerous words, especially inside communities where identity and reputation intertwine so completely. Daniel Hale arrived shortly afterward. He listened quietly. No interruptions. No attempts at defense. Only grief. Because regardless of what Samuel had done, he remained Daniel's brother. Love does not disappear when truth arrives. It becomes more painful. Outside, Pine Hollow continued waiting. Reporters gathered near the courthouse steps. Church leaders released statements encouraging patience and compassion. Residents avoided eye contact with television cameras. The town understood that national attention would soon intensify. Small secrets had grown into a national story. The final entry in Rebecca's journal carried no date. Only time, 11:40 p.m., the night of October 16th. Hours before everything changed. Her handwriting appeared steadier. Resolved. Certain. I am afraid. Simple words. Honest words. Perhaps the most human words in the entire journal. She feared disappointing her parents. She feared destroying relationships. She feared becoming responsible for consequences reaching far beyond herself. But another fear outweighed all the others. The fear of remaining silent. The truth belongs to everyone touched by it, she wrote. Keeping it hidden only creates new victims. Then came one final observation, one that froze every investigator present. Victor looked at me tonight as if he already knew what I intended to do. The sentence carried enormous implications. If Victor understood Rebecca planned to speak publicly, if Samuel understood, then multiple people possessed motives rooted not in hatred, but in panic. Panic drives human beings toward terrible decisions. The journal ended there. No farewell, no dramatic final statement, just blank pages. The ordinary silence that follows interrupted lives. Sheriff Brooks closed the cover carefully. 40 years of waiting. 40 years of speculation. And still, certainty remained elusive. They possessed motive, fear, family pressure, financial dependence, hidden histories, but they still lacked the one thing every investigation requires: proof. Meanwhile, forensic specialists revisited the items recovered alongside the journal. The old camera, ignored initially, overshadowed by Rebecca's writings. Now it demanded attention. Film remained inside, unprocessed, a miracle of preservation. Technicians worked with extraordinary caution. History had already survived 4 decades. No one intended to damage it now. Hours later, the first images emerged. Blurry, faded, partial. Then clarity arrived. Photographs of the Creek property. Photographs of Samuel and Victor meeting near storage buildings. Photographs of boxes being moved at night. Evidence Rebecca collected herself. The final frame stopped everyone cold. Samuel stood facing the camera. He had seen her. There was no doubt. The expression on his face contained neither anger nor surprise, only despair. The look of a man realizing the future he desperately feared had finally arrived. Night fell over Pine Hollow once more. Streetlights illuminated quiet roads. Porches filled with anxious conversations. Families gathered around dinner tables discussing events their grandparents once refused to mention. The past had returned, not as memory, as evidence. And somewhere between Rebecca's final journal entry and the unprocessed photographs hidden beneath decades of soil, investigators understood something terrifying. The secret at the center of this mystery was never strong. It survived because people loved one another enough to protect it. And sometimes love, when twisted by fear, becomes the most dangerous force a family can ever possess. The photographs ended the last illusion of distance. For 40 years, Samuel Hale existed inside the investigation as a possibility. A brother, a witness, a respected man carrying unanswered questions. Now, through Rebecca's own camera, he stepped directly into the center of history. He had seen her. He knew she was documenting something. And according to her final journal entries, he understood exactly what she intended to do next. The atmosphere inside the sheriff's office changed permanently. No celebración, no declarations, only a growing awareness that the truth, once hidden beneath generations of loyalty, had finally begun demanding names. Morning sunlight filtered through old windows as forensic specialists enlarged every recovered image. The details were extraordinary. Boxes stacked near the abandoned Creek property. Vehicle tire patterns matching those found near Rebecca's car. Victor Crane moving equipment under cover of darkness. And Samuel, always Samuel, watching, waiting, afraid. Fear remained the constant companion of every piece of evidence. Not rage, not greed, fear. The emotion of a man protecting something too fragile to survive public exposure. Sheriff Eleanor Brooks studied the final photograph repeatedly. Human beings reveal entire internal worlds through posture alone. Samuel's shoulders had collapsed inward. His expression carried resignation. He looked like someone witnessing the inevitable arrival of truth. Across Pine Hollow, church leaders attempted to preserve calm. Sunday sermons focused on forgiveness, on mercy, on the burdens families carry across generations. Nobody mentioned Rebecca directly. Nobody needed to. Every person sitting in those wooden pews understood exactly what remained unspoken. The town had entered a period beyond denial. Questions now centered upon responsibility. Who knew? Who remained silent? Who convinced themselves that protecting loved ones justified burying reality? Those questions threatened far more people than any criminal investigation ever could. Daniel Hale avoided public spaces entirely. Reporters waited outside his motel. Neighbors from childhood left messages he never returned. He spent hours reading copies of Rebecca's journal entries, searching for the cousin he remembered, the woman who brought books to family gatherings, the teacher who remembered everyone's birthdays, the person brave enough to challenge an entire structure of inherited silence. One sentence haunted him more than all the others. We have mistaken loyalty for love. Daniel understood it now. Families sometimes demand silence and call it devotion. They demand protection and call it unity. By the time truth arrives, nobody remembers where affection ended and fear began. Meanwhile, investigators expanded their search for Victor Crane. Officially, he disappeared from North Carolina in late 1986. No forwarding address. No stable employment. No permanent résidence. A ghost moving through administrative systems without leaving meaningful traces. But ghosts make mistakes. Old Social Security records revealed temporary work in eastern Tennessee during the early 1990s. A mechanic remembered him. An employer remembered him. Every description sounded identical. Quiet, observant, always carrying documents, always acting like someone expecting trouble. People who survive through leverage rarely travel without insurance. Sheriff Brooks developed a troubling theory. Victor never trusted Samuel. Samuel never trusted Victor. Their relationship depended entirely upon mutual destruction. Each man possessed information capable of ruining the other. Rebecca threatened both. By choosing honesty, she destabilized an arrangement maintained through fear for years. The consequences could have been catastrophic. Late that afternoon, forensic analysts delivered another breakthrough. The flashlight recovered alongside Rebecca's journal contained partial fingerprints preserved beneath layers of corrosion. Technology accomplished what previous generations could not. The comparison produced two matches. Rebecca Hale, Victor Crane. The room fell silent. The implication struck with enormous force. Victor had handled items hidden beside Rebecca's journal, either before her disappearance or after. Both possibilities carried terrifying consequences. Still, one question remained stubbornly unanswered. Why hide the journal at all? If Victor wanted leverage, preserving Rebecca's writings made sense. If Samuel wanted silence, burying them made sense. The motivations contradicted one another. Human behavior rarely follows simple logic. Perhaps both men acted independently. Perhaps events unfolded too quickly. Perhaps panic created decisions neither fully understood. The past refused straightforward explanations. Outside, Miller Creek continued moving beneath pale autumn light. Investigators returned once more to the abandoned property, not searching for bodies, not searching for dramatic revelations, searching for context, understanding. The landscape itself might preserve answers memory could not. An elderly surveyor joined the team. Retired, 79 years old. He helped map the original property boundaries in the early 1980s. Time had weathered his face, but not his recollection. Walking slowly through the trees, he stopped near an overgrown clearing. "I remember this place," he said quietly. Nobody interrupted. Samuel wanted something built here. Storage facilities, maybe. The permits never made sense. Another pause. Victor handled most of the negotiations. Sheriff Brooks asked the obvious question. What happened to the project? The old man looked toward the creek. Nobody ever explained. One day they were rushing to finish everything. The next day it all stopped. Stopped. Abruptly. Without explanation. Human beings abandon profitable ventures only when something more important demands attention, or when something goes terribly wrong. The investigation into the undocumented laborer intensified. Records from that era proved almost non-existent. Temporary workers often disappeared between counties without formal documentation. Lives existing beyond official systems. Easy to exploit. Easy to forget. Easy to lose. Rebecca believed an accident occurred. Victor preserved evidence. Samuel purchased silence. If true, the arrangement poisoned every year that followed. One hidden tragedy creating another. Night settled over Pine Hollow. The town glowed beneath porch lights and uncertainty. Children asked parents questions never discussed before. Grandparents struggled to separate memory from loyalty. Entire families reevaluated stories repeated across decades. History itself had become unstable. Inside the sheriff's office, Eleanor Brooks remained alone. Rebecca's journal rested beside the enlarged photographs. The evidence felt overwhelming, yet still incomplete. Every answer produced fresh mysteries. Every revelation uncovered deeper layers. That is the nature of old secrets. They do not exist independently. They attach themselves to people, to marriages, to friendships, to communities. Untangling them means accepting collateral damage. Her phone rang shortly after midnight. Unknown number. A man's voice. Older. Tired. Different from the anonymous caller who previously mentioned Samuel visiting Miller Creek. This voice carried something else. Surrender. I kept my promise long enough, the man said. No introduction. No hositation. I worked on that property in '84. Sheriff Brooks straightened immediately. The room became utterly still. We weren't supposed to stay after dark, but one night there was an accident. Breathing. Heavy. Controlled. Nobody died. Not then. But Victor started taking photographs. Samuel panicked. Everybody panicked. Silence. 40 years balanced upon the next sentence. The girl found out because she was the only person in that family who still believed truth mattered more than reputation. The caller stopped speaking. Rain began tapping softly against the office windows. History itself seemed to lean closer. Who are you? Brooks asked. A long pause followed. Long enough for regret to fill every empty space. Someone who should have spoken in 1986. The line disconnected. No name. No location. Only another ghost stepping briefly into the light before disappearing once again. Sheriff Brooks remained motionless. The pieces continued moving. The architecture of silence continued collapsing. And somewhere beyond fear, beyond loyalty, beyond 4 decades of carefully protected appearances, Rebecca Hale's decision to tell the truth was still unfolding exactly as she intended. Tomorrow. She always believed tomorrow would come. She had simply underestimated how long an entire town could postpone it.